Something's broken, and it needs to be fixed. What happens now, Representative Folwell? I mean, there's consequences to what does and doesn't happen in the bill mill, and beyond field trips being canceled and parents being asked to drive their kids to school stuff. What's the overall impact on the state? And beyond hoping for lower fuel prices, what can really be done?
Well, that's a great question. The overall impact of the state is that if legislators and cannot find ways to get a higher return out of things that taxpayers have already paid for, then we're on a path. We have an addiction for money that we cannot sustain, and it really comes back down to prioritization. And before I leave, I want to make sure that I'm to point out that our minority leaders are Phil Berger in the Senate and Representative Skip Stam in the House from Raleigh. But we have to prioritize what's going on. We have to prioritize what we do in education, what we do in roads, what we do in public safety, and really what we do to make sure that we have healthy, growing families here in North Carolina.
Yeah, but you made an excellent point early on in our discussion when you said there's two schools of thought, and you're of the school that there isn't a revenue problem, there's a spending problem. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of our listeners tend to agree with you. Unfortunately, the party in control takes a different view. In the meantime, your constituents are getting hosed.
Well, and it's not only happening, at the state level, but it's also happening at the federal level. And I was talking to Mark Stevens a few months ago from Fetcher Stevens, and we were talking about a survey that comes out once in a while called the Institutional Confidence. And not to get too deep into a survey, but it basically tries to measure how people feel about us and our ability to do things.
They don't feel good about it, I'll tell you right now.
No, and it really broke it down into many different subcategories, but basically people's belief that we can properly educate their children with the dropout rate that's occurring in the K-12 education, in addition to the number of people who are just bored, is their confidence in us is an all-time low. Their confidence in us to build them the proper transportation system without the use of toll roads is at an all-time low. Their confidence in us to protect their families in terms of public safety is at an all-time low. Just only people's confidence in our national military is over 50%. And what happens is that when you continue to have an addiction to money and to have a misprioritization of what you spend that money on, people lose confidence, and that's what we have to attack.
See, but here's what I don't understand. It's evident based on all these polling things and everything else, but the Democratic leadership has to understand the troops are getting angry, and every year when it comes time to get elected, they want to reach out and they want these people to restore them to power. Mm-hmm. You would think, a reasonable person would conclude, okay, we're getting a lot of noise over here, we got to respond to that noise, something's wrong. But it appears as if, I don't know whether it's arrogance or myopia or what, but they won't even listen to an alternative view because it's coming from you and you're the other team.
That's correct. And on the major issues, that is how it works. There are some micro issues that people do work across the aisles on. For example, Representative Linda Coleman from Wake County and I constantly work on how do we lower the premiums for the state health plan. So there are micro examples of where people do work across the aisle to produce good legislation for the benefit of North Carolinians. But once again, if you don't come back to the prioritization of the budget, and if you do not come back to how can we get a higher return out of things that taxpayers have already paid for, and what does that mean to your listeners? It means this. How much do we utilize lawnmowers? How much are we utilizing dormitories? How much are we utilizing college professors? What is the return on investment out of any program that we have in our K-12 education? What is the proper utilization And are we getting the highest return on the difference between using asphalt and concrete on our highways? What can we possibly do with computers and bus routing to make sure that our buses are more efficient?